Hello, runners. How are you all doing? Hope all of you are enjoying current meso activities, and I'm sure you are, getting stronger, leaner, fitter each day as we inch towards our final race day. This is Coach Ani, and I'm here with yet another episode of our podcast with runners. If you are listening this for the first time, this is something we do every season. An idea is very simple, that we hear from our fellow runners, learn from them based on their experience, and get better runners each day. Generally, our head coach Bala leads majority of this podcast, but as you know, we are growing. We are 800 runners. There are so many incredible and amazing stories from so many runners that we decided to scale it out, and that's why you're seeing this new phase. And in today's podcast, we are going to talk about very interesting topic. We have some incredible runners from RHWB, and I will introduce them in few minutes. We'll hear from them on their RHWB journey. But most importantly, in today's podcast, we are going to double down on a very interesting and important topic when it comes to running. And that topic is conversational pace run, also known as base pace run. Some call it easy, steady runs, or I also heard people saying it recovery runs. There are many names to these runs, but what is important is the conversational pace run, base pace runs, they make up majority of your running volume. So if you go and open your final search, you will see that the 80% of your runs, or almost 70 to 80% of your runs, are base pace runs. But the question is, the definition of conversational pace, every time I talk with someone, what do they mean by conversational pace run? I get different answer, right? So what I want to do today is talk about what is conversational pace run, what actually it means when we say easy runs or recovery runs, how far or how long or what pace we should run this pace, this run should be. So we're gonna touch upon these topics in today's podcast. But let me start with welcoming three incredible runners of RHWB. And without further ado, let me start the introduction. So, guest one.
Right. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much, Coach Annie, for the lovely introductions. Thank you for having us. My name is Jasira, and I live in Phoenix, in Arizona. And yes, it is very hot here, very hot. And it has been like that for a few months. I was born in Kerala, grew up in Karnataka, moved to US in 2010. Since moving to US, I've been in many parts of the US and started RHWB about 2 years ago. And this is my fourth official season with RHWB. I say it official season because I have done one unofficial season. And that was through my sister who first introduced me to RSWB. So she was doing a 10K and I was like a tag along runner. She lives in New Jersey. That's how she got introduced to RSWB. And I was just like, she'll say, I'm running this many miles, so I'll run the same. But I am a COVID runner. So I started running in 2021, summer of 2021. And
We have many runners like you, Jesse. We call them Eklavya runners. I'm sure you must have heard about this lot. But good to have you. Do you have any athletic background, or is this the first time running?
No, I used to do track in school, but that was many years ago. So yeah, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400, 8K.
Wow.
I could never do 8K. I felt as if I was going to die. Even when I started, like in 2021, when I started, I was doing couch to 5K. And that motivation also came because I could not go up one flight up the stairs without huffing and puffing.
Oh,
I
wow.
still remember like 1 minute running, I felt I was going to die at the end.
And here you are, and here you are on the RHWB podcast talking about conversational pace. What a journey. Amazing. All right, let's go to guest two.
Hello, good evening. Thanks, Coach Ani. Actually, my name also is Ani, short for name. I am also Anirudh Nagnur. I reside in Houston, Texas, and like my fellow colleague Jesse here, also is very, very hot. In fact, today probably was the hottest day of the season. It crossed 40 degrees Celsius or 109 degrees Fahrenheit, so very hot. But anyway, I actually born and brought up in Mumbai. I grew up there, completed my education, start my professional career there. I'm an engineer by profession.
Hmm.
And then I moved to Middle East, Qatar. I was there for 5 years. From there, moved to Malaysia, KL. Uh, Actually, KL is where I started becoming very active. I am very competitive person by nature. So I have played all types of sports, name cricket, football, squash, which was my favorite, tennis, lawn tennis. Uh, and my most favorite game is chess, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, I play daily. Chess is something I cannot do without. So anyway, so what happened was about 10 years back or so, my wife Aishwarya, she's also part of the RHW group. She started running and she was motivating me to run, but I said, no, no, it's boring. I want to play competitive sports. But then I decided, okay, let me give it a try, right? And I was not sure whether I would continue long, but it's been 10 years and I've enjoyed this journey. When I started, it was without any coaching or background. I just started running one fine day and started doing like 2 kilometers and went to 5 kilometers, did a lot of 5K runs, then tried to do 10K, which I successfully did. One good thing which unknowingly that I did was I started running non-stop. So I used to not stop, no walking, nothing. I wanted to run continuous without stopping. So what happened? It automatically became like a conversational pace run for me without knowing all this. So that way I was lucky that I started that way.
Amazing.
This is my third season with RHWB under Coach Saurabh, and he has been a fantastic coach to me. I have improved tremendously in last 3 seasons, and I'm really happy to be part of this to see how our experience can help other fellow colleagues who have just started with RSWB.
Awesome. Amazingly said. Welcome, Anirudh, on the podcast. Hey, look, I always say, even, I play a lot of sport, as you may be knowing. I always say running is a very special, it's competitive in a very special way, right? In the sense you're
Yes,
competing with yourself, right?
yes, sir.
You're competing with your yesterday's run when you're doing it today's run and so on and so forth. And it goes for races also.
True.
Uh, but yeah, very well articulated. Yep. Let's go to Indrajit, guest number three.
Thanks, Ani, Coach Ani. Hello, everyone. My name is Indrajeet Pawar, and I live in Houston, Texas. I've been originally from Mumbai. I studied there, I worked there, and almost 2013, I moved to US. Um, I went to Boston. I stayed a couple of years there. That's why I have a lot of soft corner for Boston Red Sox specifically. But now I'm settled in Sugarland, which is a suburb of Houston. Regarding my family, I have 11-year-old son, just started his middle school. I have my daughter, 6-year-old, and my wife. She's also a part of RHWB. She's doing her second season with RHWB. And for me, this is the fifth season. I have started season six. Yes, it was season six, five seasons back, and it was an interesting story. Uh, Before that, it was COVID period, and we used to hear a lot about running because here Coach Saurav and Aparna, they live nearby, so they used to tell us, talk about it, and we thought, oh, that sounds good, and let's give it a try. And I had never learned in my life. It was like I don't know how I will do, and I wanted to start with a 5K run, and Coach Saurabh said, no, 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 5K, no, you aim big and start. So I started with half marathon,
Wow.
and I never stopped after that. So I'm glad I listened to Coach. Saurabh, and I've been training under Coach Suja for the last 5 years. She's been amazing. She's helped me a lot, and I think this is one of the best things that has happened, in the recent time.
Awesome, awesome, guys. I didn't realize this before the podcast that I'm talking with two people from Texas and one from Arizona. And honestly, we don't know how you do your runs in summer. I'm sure it requires a lot of management and time management rather, and organizing your daily routine to make sure you do your summer runs early in the morning or late at night. So kudos to you. All right. So see. To the listeners, the guest on the podcast, just to share something with you, they are handpicked by their coaches, right? So, for example, I wanted to do a podcast in conversational pace, and I reached out to all the coaches, and these three guests here, Jasira, Anirudha, and Indrajeet, their coaches feel that they have mastered the art of conversational pace, and that's why they are here. And we want to hear from them, and we want to learn from them. So, let me start with a very, very basic question, because as I said at the start of the podcast, I get different answers from different people when I say, hey, what is your conversational pace, or what do you mean by conversational pace, right? So let me go to Jasira. Jassi, what, in your definition, what is a conversational pace?
My simple definition is being able to complete sentences without gasping for air. Like as I say, without feeling like, oh my God, you're going to die. So since I run mostly by myself, I have these conversations with myself where I try and see that am I able to keep my heart rate so low that I'm able to breathe. So I do a lot of things during that time. I try to focus on my breathing. I try to stay in the aerobic zone in the watch, where it is like zone 2, zone 3. Try to stay there so I'm able to sing along or form complete sentences in my mind without feeling like I have to gasp for air. That's my goal. I'm very honored to hear that Coach Suja and Coach Saurabh think that I have mastered the art of conversational pace running. It's a work in progress. I do strive to get to that. Like I've seen some coaches, especially Coach Saurabh. Oh my God, I don't know how he keeps his heart rate so
I
low.
know.
And I wish I can get there one day, someday.
Yeah, we
But
all
is
do.
it? Yes, true. I mean, you see Coach Saurabh, runs on Strava, and you don't know, what's going on with his heart rate. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just a follow-up questions. When you do CP runs, do you only focus on heart rate, or it's mainly you based go with the feeling that, hey, I'm able to do a conversation. I don't worry about the heart rate.
Initially, I started off focused, like I needed something to focus on, so I know what I'm doing is right. So I was focused very heavily on the watch. And then later, now it's just effort based. If I feel as if I'm not able to like have conversations with myself, or I feel as if I'm gasping for breath, I naturally slow down. If I'm able to run like 9 minutes per mile during my conversational pace, I can go as slow as like 13 minutes per mile, even 14 minutes per mile. I actually discovered the conversational pace running, the benefit of conversational running by accident, I want to say. Because last summer, I was training with my daughter, who is 6 years old. At that time, she had not turned 6 at that time. She was like 5.5. Under Coach Saurabh as well. She was training for 5K. So I would go with her early in the morning, and she was training for 5K. I was training for half marathon. So for her, her distances were, of course, short, and then she has to run for 1 minute or 0.5 miles, and then she'll stop. So with her, I would also stop. And then I noticed, like, after she was done, when I continued running, my pace became faster, and I was able to run at slower heart rate and slower effort, like easier effort, for much longer. then that's when I started digging more into like low heart rate running, conversational pace. And I became a fan of this form of running. And yeah, anytime it's my favorite type of run. I look forward to base pace runs, conversation pace runs, recovery runs, uh, because I feel as if like I'm not putting too much effort. I can have conversations with myself. It's also like me time. So there's a lots of processing that goes on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I always say in my mind, I always say there is a quote unquote talk test which you have to do to know whether you're running in a conversational pace run or not. And that can mean doing weird things while running. Like for example, if you're running with your daughter, you can always have a conversation. But a lot of I heard people singing a song, "Happy Birthday to You," or humming, or doing XYZ, just to see whether they're they are not picking up the pace where they have to gasp for air, right? But that's very well articulated. Anirudh, how about you? Where did you start your what is in your mind? What do you mean by CP run?
Yeah.
If a beginner runners who are listening it for the first time, and if they want to understand what's a CP run, what's your definition for a CP
Yeah.
run?
So from my point of view, there are two definitions. One is very simple layman's term, as Jasira mentioned, is that when you're running, if you can have conversation, whether it's humming, singing a song like your birthday song, or even what I do is whenever I pass someone, because mornings people are always walking, running, exercising, I try to wish them, say something, and I gauge whether I'm able to do without, gasping for breath. No huffing and puffing, basically. So that's one definition. But my definition is basically whatever is your maximum heart rate, going 70% of that.
Hmm.
So for me, in fact, if you put your details in Health Fit app, actually Health Fit apps gives you your range, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So I like to run an aerobic zone, uh, which for me, my age, and is about 125 to 140. So lower the heart rate, better.
Hmm.
Aerobic run means basically body is using oxygen mixed in blood to actually fuel this run. So that is the best way of running. There are a lot of advantages I understand from running aerobic runs. Basically, less stress to the body, faster recovery after long runs. See, we are not running a 100-meter dash or 200-meter dash, right? We are aiming to run a half marathon, full marathon, and some are even running ultra marathons, right? So the only way you can do that is to run slow, consistent pace, keep your heart rate low, so you can go the full distance without harming your body. So at the end of your half marathon or full marathon, you should still feel that you've got enough energy,
Hmm.
post that. So that is my definition of aerobic run. Conversational pace run.
So what I'm hearing, there are two ways, right? One is just go by the feel, and that's where you're singing a song. You are able to do a conversation with your fellow runners, and it's a easy run. You are able to finish it without any problem, without gasping or without getting
Right.
tired. So that's one definition. And second is which you talked about more technical is,
Yeah.
hey, find out your max heart rate. What's your max heart rate? Which there are many formulas available,
Yeah.
but one of the formula we use is 220 minus your
Minus
age. That
age.
becomes your max heart rate, and then based on that, create zone 1 to zone 5 and stay in
Correct.
zone 1 and zone 2, which is essentially aerobic zone.
Yes.
And which will lead to if you run in that zone, that will lead to easy runs or conversational pace run.
Yeah, I
That's
just want to add something there, what you said. So when you say just running and seeing whether you're able to converse, right? But for me, I was very confused because when I started running, even after like point 0.1, point 0.2 mile, my heart rate to jump to 135, 140.
hmm,
And I used to feel that I'm able to converse, but that is not really sort of a good heart rate
hmm,
to start run.
hmm, hmm,
Because remember, long runs, your base pace, which is the pace and on the mile one, is very important. Lower it is, the better the chances you have of completing the full distance, right? So for me, heart rate, actually, I find it easier to manage my heart rate or monitor my heart rate. And especially for the first mile, keep it low. Because what I have observed from my experience is after you have completed 1 mile, the body is already warmed up and
Yep,
automatically your pace increases with low heart rate. But if you start fast and your heart rate jumps to 140, it becomes very difficult to control your heart rate.
understood. Yep,
That is
yep.
my
No, very,
experience.
very well said.
Just to,
Very
just
well
to
said.
add to that, Coach Ani, sorry, I'm continuing
Yeah,
this.
go ahead.
So I had a exactly a different story to tell. What happened is when I was too much enthusiastic to start running, right? So
Mm.
during the initial period, right, the runs were smaller during the weekdays. So it was told that run CP runs, do conversational pace runs, and I was like, okay, that's okay, but I'm going to run because that was the zeal of running that I got into, right? So I used to run, and for first few days I felt like okay, I used to run walk and do like this. But when the long run started, that's when I realized that, oh, I used to start fast, then gradually I used to slow, and ultimately I had to walk. So that's when I realized that CP is what you should follow, and it should be exactly the opposite way. You start slow and then start picking up pace later on.
Yeah.
So what I
Yep.
started doing is I started running, I slowed down myself, and I started running in such a way that when I am doing a CP run, when I come home, I take off my shoes, and I just get onto the normal routine that I have to do. I don't have to sit because I think I'm tired or anything. So that's the basics I follow while CP run is okay. It is just like any other normal activity that you're doing. Once you're home, you should be able to do everything that you do normally. So that's, I would suggest, that is what made me actually grow in the speed, because I started slow, and as I said, this is the 5th season I'm doing. So now I realize if I go back and look my pace at that time and now, it has gone a lot of change.
Yeah, no, very well said. So, running hard every day. When I say hard, that means doing a speed play, imagine you are doing strides every day or fartlek or, kind of advanced runs on a daily basis. That definitely, gonna lead to muscle fatigue. And that means it's gonna, eventually have a injury, which, you will be forced to take break from runs. And that's why if you recall, I think we do this especially for new runners. We do this new runner session before the season starts, and we show them the pyramid of what kind of how the program will look like. And at the bottom of the pyramid, which the base is the conversational pace, and easy pace run, because that is the maximum amount of activity you are going to do. That's the maximum running volume you are going to do in the 16 weeks. And then slowly the speed play and other other advanced run, they're much lesser than the conversational pace run. And the reason is muscle fatigue, reason is avoiding injury. I would like to also add one more information here, that CP pace run, while the definition is kind of similar or same for everyone, but how what is your CP pace is very kind of personal, right? It depends on runner. For me, it can be a CP pace could be a 12. For an elite runner, maybe their conversational pace run, a pace is 8 or 7, to some extent. So my question is, again, Indrajeet, if you can throw some light on this, that how did you find your conversational pace? I mean, what is your conversational pace? I'm sure it did not happen in one run or two run. It took some time, but did you follow any process? Is there any methodical process to identify what's your CP pace?
Yes, I mean, as I said, right, I to start with, I started with that action where I wanted to run fast, but then gradually I realized that, we need to follow this conversational pace. I think my initial conversational pace was around 13 and a half when I started in the first season when I slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think it's around 11 and a half. So, the thing about conversational pace is it doesn't come immediately. You have to run. You have to put a lot of miles to it. And for me, what I did was I started following that. Okay, as I said, follow the talk to yourself method first. That is the best thing that you can do to start with. And I remember one of Coach Bala's session where he said that you have to sing this happy birthday song, and I used to literally sing that while running during the initial second season. After that, the second thing what I started doing was breathing is very important while running. And trust me, the first season I never focused on breathing. And the first season was mostly looking at the watch. Okay, how am I running, and things like that.
So you're saying
But
breathing while you are running.
While running, yes, because that helps. And I think looking at the watch constantly, indirectly, it doesn't help you relax. So I stopped looking at the watch. That helps. You just run where you're comfortable. The basic thing is you breathe, you run, and see if you can talk. So that's the thing I follow mostly while running. That helped me over this multiple seasons to. I mean, I didn't even realize that from 13.5, I'm just running at 11,
As you accumulated volume, your run volume, run mileage, your CP pace got better and better. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. Jesse, you have any tips for beginners? How can they find their conversational pace?
I just want to reiterate what Indrajeet just said. Breathing was a big part of my journey towards it's still a work in progress, but breathing is a huge part. I always think when I'm running, if I'm feeling good, I'm not thinking about it. But if something is bothering me, then my attention immediately goes. And typically, it used to be breathing. So I would start noticing that I'm breathing really hard, and that translates to heart rate as well. My heart rate is also high. So I've just focused on breathing, deep breaths, take deep breaths, and then you would notice that your heart rate also slows down if you're able to kind of stay there, like not too much, but I can see like a good 5 beats per minute, it'll go down. So I also focus a lot when I'm running on breathing. That helps a lot in maintaining your conversation pace. It's again about having conversation, and not struggle to breathe while you're having conversation, right? So focus on breathing is definitely a huge thing to getting to that mastery of conversation pace. Another thing, what I felt, someone was talking about frustrations initially, not knowing what your conversational pace is. I've gone through that too. Like I seriously have no idea what my conversation pace. I go by feel and how I'm feeling. And then sometimes I start off like in the morning, and again, environment plays a huge role. It's very hot here. So heart rate is very high in summer, definitely higher than what I felt like during cooler months. So it definitely varies each season as well. So during summer, I remember it used to be like 14 minutes per mile. Now it's like I can easily run 12, 13 minutes per mile. But if I push, I can also get to 11. But then by 11, I'm already like race pace or tempo pace. And I can feel like, okay, I'm struggling, but I can maintain that pace for longer distances. Do I want to be there? No, I just want it to end as soon as possible, get back to my CP run, 12, 13 minute mile. I enjoy that pace. So the frustration, another part when I was focused too much on heart rate was when the heart rate used to go up, I had to walk. And it started like that, like 0.25 miles, my heart rate was already hitting 140, 145. I'm like, okay, then walk, bring it down to 120, 130, then pick up pace again. And that was frustrating. I was like second mile, like every 10 meters or every 100 meters, I'm walking. And slowly I noticed, like, I remember the first time, probably 3 or 4 weeks later, I noticed I was able to run for 1 mile, but I was way below in my heart rate zone. So that was an accomplishment. So continue to work on that. But then now I switched more towards breathing.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a connection there.
Yeah. I think if you pass the talk test, as we said, right? If you are a beginner, just focus on the talk test, and that should slowly give you, you will realize what your CP test, CP pace is. Also, there are, at least in my court, there are a lot of runners who love to run on treadmill, right? And then they say, hey, what is a CP pace on a treadmill? Any inputs there, Anirudh, that how do I find my CP pace in treadmill? Do I follow the same process as Jesse and Indrajeet followed, where, just go with the talk test and then, or is there anything
So,
special you have to do on a treadmill?
so before we go on that topic, I just have some tips for beginners based on what my experience is. So there are lessons learned. Number one lessons learned is when you're running, whether it's base pace, faster pace, doesn't matter. Posture is very important. Keep your body straight, because we are here to run long distances, 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. If you do not keep your body posture straight, irrespective of what pace you run, you're going to suffer and you will struggle to complete. Number one. Number two, sync your breathing with your steps. I do that. So if possible, do like 6 breath in, 4 breath out. I mean, the more you can do, breathe in and breathe out, slower will be your pace, lower will be your heart rate, and you will be able to converse better. Try to sync your breath, right? Number 3 is take small steps, right? Do not take big steps, because I think that puts a lot of pressure on your knees, basically legs. You'll get tired, your heart rate will go up. And number 4 is don't worry about pace, right? Doesn't matter whether your other people are saying they are running at 11 or 13 at a lower, like if I look at Coach Saurabh, if anyone looks, you will have a complex. How can someone run at below 120 for a full marathon? That's unbelievable, right? Even if it is average, it's still unbelievable. So it doesn't matter. If you feel that your conversational pace is 18, 19, doesn't matter. Run at that pace, right? But make sure your heart rate is below or in your aerobic zone, all right? Which you can calculate, and you have apps and you can Google it also. So that is my advice to all.
I think
don't worry about
on
pace.
I think in your last point, I always tell my beginner runners that as a beginner runner, you should only focus on completing the distance. Don't worry about what pace you are running. Don't worry about how many times you have to stop, but making sure that you're finishing the given distance, right? And then slowly you are going to, see the changes in your body, changes in the way you breathe during run, changes, your pace is going to increase. That, you're going to collect those small breadcrumbs along the way, which is going to kind of make you a better runner, right?
Yes.
But thanks for giving those tips, Anirudh. So going back to treadmill runners, so is there any special tips for treadmill runners to get their CP runs?
Yeah, from my point of view, treadmill feels like a assisted running, right? Something is assisting you to run, and you can actually run at a higher pace because it is a bit easier than running, outside. So I prefer running outdoors. I do not prefer running on treadmill, but I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. Monitor your heart rate. In fact, it is easy to monitor your heart rate in treadmill because you can see it on the screen, right?
Yeah.
So run in aerobics.
Yeah, I mean, see, look,
that's it.
Look, I strongly encourage running outside to everyone, but life happens. People travel, weather, storms, things, life happens, and you have to run on a treadmill. From my side, it would be start with 3.0 on treadmill, see how you are feeling, what your heart rate is, increase it by, let's say, to 3.5 or 4, again, see, and that's how you calibrate your runs. And, that will give you what your CP run is. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, one last question, and this I get from a lot of, again, beginner runners, right? The question is, they generally ask is, what if I'm running as slow as I can, but I still can't hold a conversation? What should I do? Indrajit?
Yes, and I would say that is going to happen initially because your body is not trained for it, right? And if you're not run before or you're not been running for a long time, that is going to happen. But it's nothing that you should think about like a short-term thing. Um, it is always you put on some miles, follow the process, like look for your breathing, look for runs that make you less tired, and as you run, make sure that you are avoiding injuries, because that's when your CP run will stabilize. And that's when, once, as I said, it will stabilize, and that's when you will start seeing the benefits, and you will realize that ultimately you can have conversation. But I would suggest to the beginner runners is, yes, initially it's not going to be a magic that, okay, you start and you're going to have it. Just initially, definitely give some time to yourself, your body to adjust to the routine. And yes, it is going to be there. As you see, as you progress from mesocycle 1 to 2 to 3, they'll notice the difference themselves.
Yeah.
Jesse, any word for advice, or Anirudh?
Yeah, I just one feedback. What helped me, because I had the same problem when I started. As soon as I run like 0.1, 0.2 miles, my heart rate is already at 135, 140, right? So what I started doing is I started telling myself that whatever runs I'm doing, whether it's 3 miles, 5 miles, I need to run non-stop. I am not going to stop. I'm not going to walk, just to slow myself down. So automatically the body says, okay, I have to, run slowly because I need to cover so much distance without stopping, which is a challenge, right? And I started like doing 3 miles without stopping. And last year in the Sugarland half marathon, I ran 10 miles without non-stop. So it the thing about running is all this takes time, right? I mean, if you're going to run like 2 or 3 years at a slow pace, steady pace, do your exercising and all those stuff, I think automatically your heart rate will come down, your pace will improve, your cadence, number of steps will improve, and all those stuff happen in time, but it requires a lot of patience.
Yeah. To be very, very honest, I found that very interesting take on running non-stop
Yeah.
to achieve, CP run, because obviously, right, it's a very difficult way to do. But I know what you're saying. What you're saying is, in your mind, you're committing to that run, to run non-stop, and that results into you running much slower, because
No.
hey, I have to still cover 3 miles or 4
Correct.
miles on this run. I should slow down as much as possible so that I can maintain my pace and finish that cross line. I mean, that's a very
Correct.
interesting take on it. Yep.
Correct.
Great. Jesse, anything from you?
I have a different take than what Anirudh said. So, each one of us are different. We're all unique runners, right?
Absolutely.
And for
Absolutely.
some people, like I consider myself a slow runner, very slow runner. Sometimes like slowing down means walking. That's how slow sometimes I needed to get. That was one thing. So run walk definitely helped in my journey when I wanted to get there, because slower than that, I there was no other way. Like there was no other way for me. I had to walk. It was frustrating at the beginning. But one advice for new runners who are just beginning this journey, I would say, bad habits are easier. It's not easier to break. So get on with good habits. So don't pay attention to pace. Focus on heart rate. Begin the journey the right way. So
Absolutely.
I started running. I just started like sprinting. And I remember there were times when my heart rate would go 190. I wouldn't realize, like, why 190? I'm not feeling it, but my heart rate was 190. And then from there, running at that pace to slow down to 13, 14 minutes per mile, sometimes even 15 minutes per mile was frustrating. But people who are just beginning their running journey do it right.
Yeah.
It'll take time. It's a progressive. It is a progression. You will notice the difference season after season. You will see that you will improve.
What a fascinating story. Yes, I see. Look, we said this at the start of the podcast. Every runner is different. You're competing with yourself, and that's what running makes it very, very special. But what is common is, so, while CP run pace, how you achieve your CP run, the process can be different for all the, many runners. But what is important to understand is that it is scientifically proven that running slower is gonna make you run farther, right? I mean, there is a lot of material available online if you have to research that running slower actually makes you run faster. Your runs, you finish run stronger, your recovery is faster, and hence the conversational pace run and base pace runs are such an important part of runner's life. And it's absolutely important that you are aware, self-aware when you're running during CP runs, and master the art of running CP runs like this, our guest here today. Fascinating conversation, guys. It's so much to hear from, your wisdom, your experience, and, coming it from the fellow RHWB runners who's, in a way started, running journey with RHWB makes it very, very special. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sure all of our RHWB runner, especially the beginner runners, the runners who are starting their journey just now, are going to benefit immensely from the knowledge and the personal stories you have shared today. So thank you so much. Thanks for your time, and I will see you on the trail. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, coach.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.